9:30. Thank you all for coming today. Today is day one of our 3 series of webinars. Tomorrow we'll be talking about work search and networking, and then on Thursday we will be looking at virtual interviews. And joining you today is myself and Alicia, who you can see on your screen there. Hello, and we will introduce ourselves in a second. So before we keep going here, we want to let you know that if you miss something or your internet gives out, don't you worry. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for you to see once we're done. So no stress there, but we do hope that you are able to join us throughout for sure. Okay, and very important here, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So the first piece of housekeeping is the fact that this is a safe space. We do have mics muted throughout. And if you have any questions about particular slides, please do chat them through to us. You can just send a chat to everyone, or you can send them privately to either Alicia or myself if you would like. That is Alicia Flat. I know we have another Alicia, I think, in our participant list. And the questions, we do have a big question and answer period at the end. So please join us for that period there, and there we will open it up. And so please keep your questions for the end. Now, just a reminder to be kind and respectful towards each other. We will be doing breakout rooms, which we will explain in a second. Be generous and kind to each other through that feedback as well. And patient with tech issues. We're all kind of working with this work from home environment, so please just be mindful of that as people are navigating just new spaces, new workplaces, new distractions. Please be mindful, respectful, and kind with all of that. And lastly, in the breakout rooms, do not feel obligated to use video. And I mean, if you would like to, by all means, but we do respect your privacy as well. So if you want to just chat through group interaction, you can do that as well. We leave it up to you if you'd like to use video or voice or both. So those are the ground rules of this webinar for today. And the other thing that we wanted to do is acknowledge the fact that the ground upon the University of Waterloo, where it sits, is the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Basically, these are the peoples that have taken care of the land for millennia, and what we can do right now is really kind of educate ourselves and think about this and how to honor the commitment and work towards truth and reconciliation as we work on their traditional territory. So that is a little bit of the housekeeping that we wanted to do. Now, as far as who is talking to you today, my name is Paulina Cisneros. On my picture here, I am here with Bowsy. He is my bulldog and just a wonderful dog. And I'm joining you from Waterloo, so just a few blocks away from the university. I am a proud UW grad. I studied psychology as an undergrad, then I worked with persons with developmental disabilities and also persons with mental health concerns. I went back to school, got a postgrad certificate in human resources, and worked in recruiting for a while, and decided that it wasn't for me. So I started doing employment counseling with newcomers to Canada, and then pivoted to the university. So I've been at the University of Waterloo for 2.5 years. I recently completed my Master of Education, and I work on the undergrad team. So I do career advising along with Alicia with resumes, cover letters, work search, that kind of stuff. And I also work on the co-op team. So I'm a career advisor and a co-op advisor. And a fun fact about myself, I really love Batman comics. I'm a bit of a nerd about them. So there we go. That's a little bit about me. And I will pass it on to Alicia, our very gracious co-host.
Yes, thank you, Paulina. What a good introduction. So I'll try to follow suit. My name is Alicia Flat, and I feel like I I hit the jackpot and I found my passion as far as being able to coach university students with employment and finding what they want. So I studied psychology and history and then did a master's in higher education. I've worked in mental health fields and then I've worked in financial aid, and I realized that I didn't want I wanted to be able to help more than I was already with in mental health. And I didn't want my interactions with students to be purely interactional, which was what my job was when I was working in financial aid. And career advising is the sweet spot where I can help with the solutions to some really stressful things going on in a really interesting and empowering way. So I'm hoping that we can bring some of our passion and our resources to you today so that we can get you motivated and empowered to find that job that you're looking for. Awesome. Okay, so then we're going to move right along. When I'm talking about finding a job, I want to let you know that this is not the only workshop resource that you have available to you. So we want to really encourage you to reach out to your co-op advisors. We want to remind you to check Waterloo Works daily for updates, as well as job postings and notifications, because there are co-op and student advisors who are very focused on being able to provide you with resources that will be helpful to you. And then as far as what career advisors can provide, we are facilitating this workshop, which you may already know is one of a 3-part series happening all week. So you can join us tomorrow and Thursday, same time. We have our drop-ins available. We have our new live chat feature. So if you go to Waterloo Center for you. Today we have a worksheet that you'll be able to follow along with today. And you can find that if you click the link that I just added to the chat there. And next, what we're going to do is go over the spring 2020 work term resources, which will highlight for you the new travel advisories and flexible pathways. So many of you may be aware of the new webpage that we placed when the spring 2020 co-op work term changed quite a bit. And so you can find this webpage too if you are curious about the different opportunities that you have, how we've relieved some of the expectations or pressures to find a co-op work term this term. And then also, if you do find something, the different ways that we have made it easier for that to be applied as co-op credit for you. So we won't go too much into detail with the nuts and bolts of arranging your own job or the co-op process specifically. A lot of that is very clearly addressed here. But of course, the co-op consult or talking to your co-op advisor will be the best place for you to get clarifications on anything that you're noticing. Okay. So then moving right along, we want to check in with you. Oh, Paulina, you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay, so before we get going with this, I am just letting you know that Alicia and I are signing off from video so that you can focus on the PowerPoint. And just a reminder to please send your student ID and your name to attendance. If you scroll through the participants, you will find attendance and in brackets Center for Career Action. Please send Cindy your information. We just want to see who's coming to our workshops. Thank you very much. And I will sign off from video. All right, so let me just take a second here to activate this slide. Sorry, sometimes it can be a little finicky, but basically, if you can please go to Mentimeter and go to the code that we have on the screen there. We want you to start thinking about how long it takes to make a first impression.
So all you need to do is type in menti.com either into your phone or into a web browser, and using the code you can fill out this little quiz for us.
Okay, so we have a bit of a dead heat between 3 seconds and 7 seconds. It's a little bit less of a dead heat now. Yes, and we have some contention for 45 seconds. That's amazing. Okay, yeah. Getting a little bit of tread now. By and large, we still certainly have 7 seconds winning almost overwhelmingly here. So we'll just allow a few more seconds to get a little bit more answers in and get your juices kind of flowing into thinking about how long it takes you to make a first impression of somebody. All right, so we're at 30 participants. I am going to call it right now and say that overall you were all on the button. It's 7 seconds that it takes to create a first impression. Now, why are we asking this? Well, this is really, really important because basically what we're going to talk about today is that first impressions. When it comes to personal branding and resumes, it's really important for you to create a first impression that you want to create. You control that first impression, and we're going to help you along the way today, hopefully control that so that you can manage your presence, whether that is online or through resumes. And just give me a second here. Close voting. Alrighty. Mentimeter is still taking votes, so it's still wanting to work. And it's not letting me go to the next slide.
I could share my screen instead, Paulina.
That would be very helpful. Thank you, Alicia. Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
I got it. Can you still see my screen?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We will talk about the current job search market, and we'll also talk about how to distinguish yourself from other applicants by creating a personal branding statement, how to articulate your skills in a resume based on a specific job posting, and very importantly, understand the importance of setting goals and taking action as we embark on this job search journey. So here to tell you a little bit more about the job search climate is Alicia.
Okay, so a lot of you know that we are in a weird time where we're avoiding speaking moistly on people and have heard the word unprecedented an unprecedented amount of times. So what we want to recognize is you're not alone in this. In some ways, the one silver lining is that we're all affected by this in different ways. And so we're all pulling together and finding solutions together through this weird time. So employers are also facing those challenges. And so they are going to be, in some cases, changing the job opportunities or looking to pivot to new ways of working or ways of solving problems. And even while all of this is going on, jobs are still being posted every day. And some headlines could lead us to feel discouraged by the prospects. But there are some industries that have been experiencing a boom, while others, like the travel industries, that have been quite negatively affected. So we want to recognize that this is a weird time to be looking for work. And for those of you on your first co-op journey, this is going to require more grit from you than maybe we would have expected. But the labor market, when we talk about it, it's referring to that supply and demand in terms of work, and we need to be able to adjust as the labor market changes. So what we hope to be able to do over this web series is help you understand the trends so that you can adjust to them accordingly. So the workshop tomorrow will focus a little bit more on work search strategies given the context we're in right now. But this workshop prepares us first to get a sense of what would we do once we found a really good job posting, for example. So the best way to make sense of the labor market is actually to first identify the skills that are in demand and ensure that we know how to speak about those skills. So now we're going to move into reflecting on what your unique skill set could include. So as you can see, we've done, the University of Waterloo has done really excellent research on what skills are in demand for each faculty. So shout out to all of the different faculty folks here. You can, in the chat, even say what faculty you're from if you want to represent. But what we see here in the different word clouds are the skills that the University of Waterloo research team found employers are asking for within different faculties. So we'll see AHS, we'll see science, math, then orange is arts, then we have environment, and then finally purple engineering. And so you'll see some of the different skills there. You'll also recognize, though, that just because you are in one faculty doesn't mean that that necessarily, all of those words represent who you are uniquely. You're more than your faculty. So what does that leave for you to identify? What makes you you? So you're so much more than your faculty or program of study. Today, we want to get you to reflect on the experiences you've had and what you've gained from them. So we're going to be leading you in a bit of a reflection exercise that gets you to think about, okay, so you've got the academics, which may include projects or assignments or group work, or maybe hands-on lab work or design work, and get you to reflect on those important things, but also bring in what makes you you outside of the classroom. So what do you like to do for fun as far as sports? What causes are you passionate about? Have you volunteered with any of those causes? What clubs do you like to spend your time in? And then finally, what professional experience you had, whether that's paid or unpaid, whether it's in competitions or the projects that you've done as well. So we're really trying to get a sense of who are you beyond what your major is, and then how do we broadcast that in a compelling way to employers?
And that is exactly what personal branding is. So today we're going to talk about personal branding statements particularly, so that you can take all of those things that make you, you, as Alicia was talking about, and actually be able to craft it into a statement that you can bring out next time you're asked, maybe, what do you do at a, well, I guess you won't be at a party anytime soon, but anytime you're introducing yourself to anybody. And this is the time to do virtual networking, for example, which we will be talking about tomorrow. You want to make sure you understand your unique value proposition to the market. So we're going to talk about personal branding statements for a second. If you're wondering what those are, we've brought in some different sources to explain them in different ways. So from the undercover recruiter, this is one of my favorites. So your personal brand statement is 1 to 2 sentences answering what you are best at, so your value, who you serve, so your audience, and how you do it uniquely. It sums up your unique promise of value. Your personal brand statement is distinctive to you and you alone. So like Alicia was saying, you're not just your faculty. So you might start out by talking a little bit about your program of study, but then really make sure that you're segueing into what makes you unique. Inc.com has another great one. It's saying that personal branding is knowing how to tell your story with the limited amount of characters on the right platforms and to the right audience. And this is what virtual networking is all about, for example. And lastly here, again from the undercover recruiter, it is not a job title. So a job title is what others will try to classify you with and want you to fit into a corporate setting. You deserve better than that. So hopefully you are thinking about yourself not so much as an aspiring geographer. What is it that you want to do, right? Like, think about yourself more broadly than a job title that you are hoping to be in the future. So those are different ways to think about your branding statement. And so when you're crafting your branding statement, I want you to think about it more as guiding questions. So what kind of things would you like to mention in your personal brand statement? Well, we want to start with your name, right? What you're studying might be a fine place to start as well. But then going further than that, why do you do what you do? What's getting you up in the morning? What would you like to achieve? Is there some problem that you would like to solve in the world? Have other complimented you in terms of your unique traits and abilities? Is there something that you're always commended about? And any skills that you're particularly good at? So if you really love Excel and that is your jam, then talk about that. Because nothing is more exciting than seeing somebody talk about something that they truly love and are passionate about. And personal branding, when you're working on your statements, that is something that will come through, hopefully, if you're doing it right. So for the next step here, we actually want to give you a little bit of examples of what personal branding statements might look like. So we have some here. With my understanding of peace and conflict factors, I want to develop new ways of helping refugees settle into Canadian communities. I won't read all of these word for word, but they are up there for the screen, in the screen in front of you. And we also have one with some blanks at the bottom, which can also provide you some sense of wording if you would like to use that. But really at the end, I'm not being too prescriptive here because I want you to use your own wording, to have your own personality and your own passion for what you do come out, and that involves using your own words. So what we're going to do now is that I'm going to ask you all to go to your worksheet, which again, it is in the chat there, and work on your personal branding statement. We're going to give you about 5 minutes here. We're going to leave the examples up for you. And just take a second to jot some down. You will be sharing it afterwards, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but please make sure that you have something. And if you have any questions, you can send them through the chat. And Alicia just sent the worksheet as well.
So if you joined us before and just missed what the instructions were, what we're giving you right now is an opportunity for a couple of minutes to write out your own personal branding statement, and we'll connect again in just a moment or two.
All right, and we'll take another minute here just to wrap up some semblance of a personal branding statement. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. All right, so hopefully you have the beginning of a personal branding statement. I know when we do this workshop in person, a lot of people write their personal branding statements, but kind of, you know, cover their personal branding statements with their bodies so that other people can't read them, right? As if they were some kind of a state secret. But really, the whole point here is that the personal branding statement is meant to be shared. So that's exactly what we're going to do next. We're going to go into breakout rooms and spend some time sharing statements, use this time to refine, as well as gather some feedback about how you feel actually saying these words out loud. And don't be afraid to be a little bit aspirational here. If you are feeling like you are a professional in a certain field, and that's what you would like to go, then don't be afraid to throw that into your breakout rooms. At the end of the day, it's all about what you portray out to the world. So we're just going to go into breakout rooms. If you haven't done them before, just hang in there. Basically, what's going to happen is that you're going to be in rooms with about 4 or 5 other people, and I will guide you through with a series of questions. This is where you can unmute yourselves by all means, put your camera on if you like, or just participate through chat. So we will break out into 10 rooms. So we'll have 4 to 5 participants per room here. And I will just ask you all to share your personal branding statements with each other. All right, so welcome back. I believe we're mostly all back from the breakout rooms. Alicia, confirm you can hear, we're all good?
We're all good over here.
All right, fantastic, thank you. And just a reminder again to send your attendance information to our attendance, which is Cindy, and you can find her under attendance to Center for Career Action under the participant list. Okay, so I hope that went well and you were able to communicate with other people and get a feel for actually using your personal branding statement. So again, I would like to encourage you all, if you're back on the main site here, to go to Mentimeter, enter in the code, and start thinking about where you plan to use your personal branding statement. And Alicia, if you wouldn't mind just reading out the code, I can't see it because of the Zoom controls.
Oh, sure. That code again is 435576.
Thank you very much, Alicia. And that's on menti.com. Okay, so quite a bit of you seeing the virtual networking advantages of having a personal branding statement, which is fantastic. Then some of you are thinking of using it for a clearer, more targeted resume, which is also great. And that's exactly where we're going to go next, because we also see the valuable application of using your personal branding statement there. And tomorrow we'll be talking about using it, for example, on a LinkedIn profile, or using elements of it, certainly for networking as well, which is the third choice. The conversations with family, friends, neighbors, contacts, just because we're not seeing each other physically doesn't mean that we're not having conversations with people. Again, Alicia will walk you through this tomorrow, but what is really, really valuable is thinking about reaching out to others who are in your life, because you never know who they know, and you never know what they know. Everybody you meet will know somebody, something, or somebody that you don't. So don't be afraid to talk to whoever you can about your work search. It does not have to be a secret. So thank you. It's good to know where you will be using your personal branding statement. And we'll be talking all about LinkedIn and social media applications tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much, Paulina. Now, I want to invite those of you who are in the presentation now to maybe find a saved version of your resume, and we'll be able to go through. A lot of you already know a lot of the basics about resumes, so we're not going to bore you with more resume basics. We're going to go over a few things just to kind of use this as a checklist. Are the things that I'm bringing up now available in your resume? And even looking at your resume while we go through this information may be helpful. So I invite you to find your version of your resume and we can take a look at this together. So first, let's look at the basic resume layout. So what we'll see here is we want to have your name and contact information really, really clearly available. And you might think to yourself, I can't read those resumes. Those are too small. We did that on purpose. I wanted to be able to demonstrate that there are a lot of different ways that your resume can look. And sometimes it can even be distracting to you as the person creating a resume to really care only about how it's looking. I want you to first think about what is the content on your resume. And so we want to make sure that your name is the easiest thing to see on that document. And then you can include your LinkedIn your website, your GitHub, any of those kinds of ways to connect online as well. And then a summary of qualifications. It's really helpful and important if in the first 5 to 7 seconds of your resume, the employer can immediately see exactly what the best qualifications you have are. And putting that closest to the top of your resume is going to be important. For some of you, that might include also a technical skill summary. If there are technical skills that are in demand for the job that you're applying to, we want to make sure that the employer can find that information easily. Listing your education. Some students decide just to put that by their name at the top of the resume, but you could also have an education section also in where you would list your awards or any recognition that you've had. Then your related experience. Now, I've worked with one student, for example, a few years ago, who she really wanted to work in pharmacy. And her first experience that she had on her resume was how she worked at a coffee bistro. And then her next experience was a pharmacy. And I asked her, can we talk about your pharmacy experience first? Even, and do you have more experience? And she said, oh yeah, I have 3 different pharmacy experiences. Oh, amazing. She didn't think to list them just because she thought, well, I don't want to be too repetitive. By all means, get all of the related stuff right on there. I see a question from Lauren that says, what is the difference between qualifications and education? That is a beautiful question. Thank you. I'm going to share that. So education would be, Bachelor of Engineering, or no, there's no such thing. Bachelor of Applied Science, Chemical Engineering, for example. But your summary of qualifications, we're going to get into, those are the first 4 or 5 bullet points that summarize why you're a good fit for that employer. So if they're looking for laboratory skills and Excel skills and people skills and being able to work remotely, you're going to list those 4 things at the very top of your resume, and we'll show you how. Really great question. Thank you. And then we also are seeing if you have volunteer experience or project experience, and then even including your interests. Do you just love karaoke and sci-fi novels? It doesn't have to be related to what you want to do when you get a job. We want to get a sense of your personality. So one line at the bottom of your resume which talks about interests, that's fantastic. Now,
time and time again, sorry, Alicia.
Yeah.
Time and time again, we've seen that employers will actually select people for interviews because they have compatible interests. So that's not to say that if you're not qualified, they'll select you, but say if they're choosing from a lot of similar applicants, and maybe one applicant has rock climbing and maybe the interviewer is starting to rock climb, they'll likely want to chat with you, right? So it really can be quite valuable to list your interests.
Yeah. So I see another question here. Does the work experience need to be chronological? In that case, your most relevant experience may be second in the list. Thank you so much, Vinay. I really understand that question. And sometimes what you can do, if you're, in the case of the pharmacy example, the barista experience was the student's most recent work experience. But what we ended up doing is we had a section underneath the summary of qualifications called pharmacy experience. And so everything went in reverse chronological order within that section of her resume. And under additional experience, that's where she put the barista experience. And so we were able to, within the sections of the resume, remain consistent in our chronological format, while still making sure that the employer's first attention or the time that they spend on the resume went first to the pharmacy experience, not on the coffee shop experience. I would love to talk more about that as well. And I want to reference also that some of this resume information that we're sharing, we would be happy to go over with you. Either your student advisor would love to chat with you more about this over a call. You could book a resume appointment with a career advisor. You could attend a drop-in, or you could go on a live chat like we talked about. So there are other ways to access this information beyond this workshop if you're getting curious. The best place to start would be Career Hub. Oh, and I see another question. If I have no work experience and not so much volunteer experience due to a school system in my hometown and national policy, what can make me more competent? Oh, and this is a great question. A lot of us are facing these kinds of considerations when this is our first work term that we're preparing for. What I recommend for you is a resume appointment, because a career advisor will be able to sit down with you and ask you a few questions about what you're proud of, or what you've done, or things that get you curious and excited. And we can pull from that conversation a lot of great content for your resume. So I'm going to recommend that to you, the resume appointment. And if you want to follow up at the end of the presentation on how to book that, we can, but if you just go to Waterloo Works, you should see our appointments. Anything to add there, Paulina?
No, I like your recommendation, Alicia. It really is important to have a conversation. It certainly is a common thing that we see. Don't feel like you're the only person looking for that first co-op experience without having had a lot of previous experience in that way. What we find is that students often don't realize the great things that they've done that they can put on their resumes. So we can definitely talk about that. And the name of that appointment is a resume appointment. If you go to Waterloo Works, on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see appointments. Then you can go to undergraduate appointments and you will find resume appointments. Thank you again, Owen, for that question.
Beautiful. Okay. So now if you consider some of the things that you did, maybe it's a project or a school assignment that you've recently had. We want to see that in your resume, and you can highlight that in your summary of qualifications. So again, this is the first thing the employer reads. It's often directly under your contact information. It's the 4 to 6 bullet points that begin with nouns or adjectives. So you're focusing on your strengths and achievements. You are going to be able to look at that job description, see what the employer wants, and then make sure that you're responding to it, targeting that potential employer with the words that they use in their job description. So being confident but not arrogant or accurate, we want you to be accurate in those summary of qualification bullet points. A great way to talk about it is hands-on experience completing projects in, or proficient in, or strong skills using, whatever. And what I love to see in a summary of qualifications is if you can point me to an example. So strong customer service skills shown through 2 years in a coffee shop, or strong ability to work remotely shown by receiving a 90+% in an online course. Those kinds of things where you say what skill you have and then reference your proof for it, either in the experience or a result, can be a really persuasive way to create that summary of qualifications. And then moving on to your bullet points, when you're actually talking about your work experiences, so this is not bullet points for your summary of qualifications anymore. This is for the experience section of your resume. We want to see that you have a strong action verb, what you did, you designed, you executed, you created, those strong action words. So what you did, and then how you did it. And so maybe if you had an assignment where you had to design a parking lot, for example, you designed a parking lot, how did you do that using ArcGIS tools? And then why did you do it to design a parking lot that had good ecological impact, for example? And so you can see the other example down below where you designed a client database using Access to double the speed of information retrieval. I see a question here that says, as an international student, if I have no Canadian experience, no volunteer experience, but you have home country experience, should you highlight your home country experience? Absolutely. Yes. I won't be able to be impressed by what you're capable of if you're not telling me what you've done in the past. So you can combine what work you've done in a different country. Your ability to work internationally is an asset. Absolutely. So tell me about what you did in your home country, and then you can add alongside that projects that you're doing or on campus, things that you're doing here. So some people think that you shouldn't include academic experience on your resume, but why are you even in school if what you're doing in school doesn't matter for jobs, right? So absolutely talk about both your experiences before the University of Waterloo, whether that be in Canada or elsewhere, and then also tell me about some of the things that you're doing as a student. Yeah, absolutely, great question. Okay. And then finally, you can actually change up the order of the bullet point formula that we've created. So what you did, maybe you manage your time to balance your role as a high school club president. How you did it, this is where we're using an adverb. So we're just explaining effectively, or in a team in some cases. And then why you did it, or what results did you achieve? You achieved the top 2 academic standing. And so you can change it up. So you can start with your achievement. You achieve the top 2 academic standing, and then you're going to tell me what you did and then how you did it. So you see how we're changing up that formula a little bit so that not all of your bullet points sound the exact same. I see another question here. I conducted a small project in Chinese high school science club. I can put it on the resume. Absolutely, you can. And what I would encourage you to do, Owen, is tell me about what was good about it. Did it suck or was it good? And if you think, no, it was good, can you explain why? And tell me about that in the bullet points on your resume. As an employer, I'm really curious to find that out. Awesome. Okay, so now we're actually going to move into an opportunity for you to reflect on how to get your resume to be appropriate for a targeted employer.
All right, so thank you, Alicia, for walking us through the resume there. At the end of the day, resumes are great in terms of you are using this as your personal branding. You are putting your first step forward in the sense that this is what the employer gets to see to start to make decisions about whether or not they would like to hire you. So it's great to have one resume that you have as a base, but really what's going to make your work search more effective is to start to think about targeting resumes. So you want to get in the mindset of a recruiter and think about what they're looking for so that you can target effectively. If they're looking for this specific skill, you want to make sure that it is highlighted in your resume so that they can make the connection right away. Very much like we had that activity at the beginning where we said that people in general take 7 seconds to create a first impression. That's actually around how long recruiters take on each resume to create an impression of whether or not they would like to interview you or not interview you. When I first started studying human resources, I heard this stat and I thought, nah, that can't be right. That's way too low. But sure enough, I started doing some hiring and I was doing some quick hiring and I realized, wow, in order to get through this stack of resumes on my desk, I really do have to take seconds to start to figure out if this is the right person or not, at least to get to the interview stage. So this is why targeting is really important. Targeting will ensure that the recruiter will see the skills that you want them to see. Much like the pharmacy experience, you want to make sure that your pharmacy experience is shining. The coffee barista experience can be in there towards the bottom, but really you want your most valuable information in the most valuable part of your resume, which is actually the top half of your first page. So we'll talk about how you can do that. Now, I'm showing you a job description for Canadian Shield. This is for working with their production team. And Alicia has shared a link to this job opportunity, so you can check it out online. This may be a job opportunity that you might be interested in. You might not be interested in this job at all. I am highlighting this simply as a job typical of the jobs that are coming out right now. Canadian Shield used to be called something else, and then they realized that they very quickly needed to ramp up production to make face shields for personal protective equipment for those people working in healthcare. So they're looking for production team members. And I actually, while I was waiting in line at the grocery store, I ran into somebody who her husband, he makes the mats that production team members stand on while they're working at Canadian Shield. And she was telling me that those mats are made so that people are specifically 6 feet away from each other. So Canadian Shield itself is innovating and trying to make this as safe as possible for its production team members, which I thought was really interesting. Anyway, so here is part of the description. So they're looking for team members, and the job duties you can see on the script, on the screen in front of you here. Basically, you would be working with in the production facility to make these face shields. Here are their job requirements. So when you are wondering, what is an employer looking for? You always want to look at the job requirements. And I encourage you to open this slide up. Sorry, not the slide. I encourage you to open the link that Alicia sent so that you can check out the job posting online. And you can start to look at the job requirements and look at your resume. And what you want to do is that you want to highlight the requirements that you possess, which are in the job posting. If you have a physical copy of your resume, you might do this with a highlighter. If you're on Word, just start highlighting with the highlighting tool. What do you have that the job, that the employer is looking for? And you want to make sure that you're highlighting those in your resume. And you want to see where those skills are on your resume. Are they posted in a highly visible place? So say the recruiter is looking for somebody who has attention to detail, and your attention to detail skill is on your second page. That's not going to be very helpful for the recruiter. So you want to start finding out where those skills are on your resume and making sure that you're pushing those up to the valuable real estate, the first half of your first page of your resume. And you want to, if possible, change your summary of qualifications to emphasize the skills listed on the job posting, and also see what else you can rearrange to emphasize relevant items. Do you have any questions about this? And feel free to chat. But I really encourage you to start doing this for the jobs that you're applying to, because it's really important for you to emphasize the skills that they're looking for. And I get a lot of first-year students who ask me, well, should I be making one resume for each job that I'm applying to? In general, I say no. That might be a little overwhelming. But what I do say is try to make 2 or 3 different types of resumes that you're targeting towards 2 or 3 different types of jobs. And you can do this yourself. You can just quickly glance at your resume and see if all of the major skills are highlighted in the first half of your resume. Or you could ask a friend to look at the job description, then take 10 seconds to look at your resume and see if they could find all of the relevant skills and abilities in the resume. Alicia, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I got a private question here, but it was such a good question, I wanted to share it. Do you provide resume templates at Career Services? And the answer to that question is, what we wouldn't want is to provide one template and for every employer to receive a massive amount of resumes that all look slightly the same. So what I would want to recommend to students who just want a guideline of what kinds of templates they can use, you can see visually different versions of templates if you just Google them, but then ultimately go back to the subsections that we were talking about, the contact information, the summary of qualifications, then whatever seems the most relevant, whether it's your volunteer experience or your work experience or your projects, and come in for a resume appointment or drop in. Virtually, we have those still running so that somebody could talk you through what they're seeing on your resume as well. And then I see a few more questions. Maybe Paulina, you can share what you know about how recruiters use applicant tracking systems.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your question, Vineeth. So basically, applicant tracking systems, sorry, there's just a truck going by. There we go. Applicant tracking systems are systems, for those of you who might not be familiar, that different recruiters use when they have a high volume of applicants to try and narrow down the amount of resumes that they get. So depending on the ATS, that's a short term for it, they work kind of differently, but basically they go by keywords. So if you're applying to a job and it's taking you to another site where you have to create a login for that specific company, likely they're going to be using an applicant tracking system. If you're applying to a job and they just ask you to email in your application, likely that's going to be first vetted by a human, not an applicant tracking system. So if you're going to that separate page and logging in and uploading your resume, sometimes they ask you to convert it to text and then upload. That is an applicant tracking system. Now, one of the best ways to get through applicant tracking systems is to make sure that you're using keywords that they are using. So don't try to use synonyms, use the actual words that they're looking for. So for example, in my case, when I was applying to the University of Waterloo, I wanted to make sure I wasn't saying internships instead of co-op. I want to make sure I'm saying co-op because that's the wording that we use at Waterloo by and large. So be very mindful of wording, industry specific or company specific wording. There are some great websites out there. There's a website called jobscan.co, and I will send it to everybody here. You get to do a couple, maybe one or two for free, but it does kind of guide you through how applicant tracking systems think. And it uses AI to counter AI. So an applicant tracking system, their AI tells you how you might make your resume more effective towards a specific job. But basically, you want to make sure that you're using keywords, and don't be afraid of making your resume a little bit longer if you need to. Make sure that you include everything. It's a little bit different than having a human vet your resume first. It's a great question. And then I see another question here. What can be effectively used to demonstrate traits like detail-oriented? Because it's vague and a number of things can be described as such. That is a great question. You know, that is a problem that we face with a lot of different traits that are transferable skills. So like communication or teamwork, things like that can feel vague. So that's why it's really important, as Alicia said earlier, to be able to provide the proof of these things. So maybe you work a lot with Excel spreadsheets and you do a lot of data analysis both in school and also in your personal projects. So you might be able to say that you have proficiency in being detail-oriented as evidenced by an extensive amount of data analysis experience. So you need to give that proof anytime you have transferable skills to be able to show that you have been able to be detail oriented. Alicia, anything to add to these two questions?
Yeah, no, you're nailing it. And I think the specific experience that you can list. So for sometimes you can get as specific as strong attention to detail shown through a 90% in the methodology section of a recent lab report. Or strong ability to work remotely shown through completing multiple projects for an environment course. And so if you can give me the context in which you used a skill, I just believe in that skill so much more. The same thing with communication or leadership. I mean, my dog can communicate, right? So if you're going to say that you've got strong communication skills, shown through being involved in 3 intramural sports teams, then I can recognize how you might be already showing off that communication skill. And just the example is great. What I would also say is if in the summary of qualifications, you're including an example, it can also be a great way to get the employer curious and want to read further down into your resume. So shown through Engineers Without Borders internship. Oh, now I'm curious, I want to read about that. Or shown through high school science project. Like Owen gave an example of earlier. As a recruiter, I might then look down to find out, oh, they did that, I want to hear more. So you can use that as a way to get more experience. And then I see Owen just asked, can I use my math and computer science grades as proof of my skills? Ooh, Paulina, what do you think? Can you talk about grades in a resume?
Yes, the short answer is yes. We certainly encourage you to do so if you're feeling really proud about your grades. A lot of time people are, that's the thing that they work on most. So if you really want to talk about your grades, you're really proud of them, go ahead and show them off. It certainly shows your dedication, your ability to work independently and to learn. And all of those good traits, your ability to work hard. So feel free to talk about them in your resume. If you're proud of them, if you really want to share. If you do not, then don't. When I was going through university, I wasn't necessarily a star student. I did okay. And I never really put it on my resume. But if you feel like you want to, then by all means, feel free. It says a lot about you. And but more, as much as grades are important, I really like seeing in a resume things like labs or different kinds of activities that you've done in school that give me a little bit more tangible examples of different skills that you've learned as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And my general rule of thumb is if you got 80% or higher, you can tell the employer that you got an A grade. And if it's 90% plus, you can put the percentage points. And that tends to translate well. Another question, if your unpaid experience is more relevant to a job posting than paid experience, should we focus on this?
Yes.
Absolutely, because employers just want to know, can you do this? Are you any good? And so Lauren, in some ways it feels like, but I didn't get paid for it. But did it work? So if it was a fundraiser, for example, how much money did you raise? Or if you volunteered somewhere, did somebody compliment you on it? Or did the event go well? Talk about the achievements that you were able, or the accomplishments you were able to achieve in those experiences. And then if you use technical skills or the transferable skills that the employer wants, oh, please let that be one of the leading parts of your resume. Great question.
Yes, I always tell students that experience is experience no matter where you gained it. And so it really is irrelevant to employers if you gained experience through paid or unpaid means. As long as you gained it, please put it on your resume and order your resume in order of relevancy, not in order of if you got paid or not. Yes, agreed. Great questions, everyone. And you can tell that got Alicia and I really excited because we love talking about experience in general.
Yeah.
All right. So in general, all of the things we've been saying today, if you take nothing else away from our presentation today is that we really want you to focus on how can you prove that you're qualified for this position that you're applying to. So that's where personal branding comes into play, and that's where targeting your resume also comes into play. And in terms of
take myself off mute. Whoops. Okay, so we've talked about quite a bit of things. We've talked about your personal branding statement, and now you have a sense of some of the things that you can do to improve and tailor your resume so that an employer can find the specific skills they're looking for very easily on your resume. And so now that you have those tools, your next step would be to create a goal. So what I would want you to do now is take a look at that worksheet that we were talking about earlier. And in each of the workshops that we have in this week, we have an opportunity for you to give yourself a little bit of a challenge. What are you going to try to do now that you have this information? And so we'll give you another link to that worksheet in just a moment. But I want to give you an opportunity to think, since you've just done this workshop, what are you going to do with the information that we shared?
And Owen, we see your question. We will answer it in the next couple of slides here. We just want to give a little bit of time for reflection.
So if you don't have the worksheet handy, I did just link back to it. However, you can also just open up a Word doc or take out a piece of paper and just reflect, now that you've done this workshop, what is it that you want to accomplish or do next? Okay. So now just a reminder for you, we love to create content for students, and our goal is to make it as helpful as possible. So if you liked what you saw today, please feel free to send back your feedback in the survey that you'll receive by the end of this week. And if there's anything that we could improve to make your experience better, we would love to hear from you about that. It is our pleasure and our joy to talk to you, and anything that we can do to make that better for you, we are absolutely willing to do. So when you do receive that survey, it's tempting just to delete them, but in this case, we do love to hear what worked and what didn't for you in this workshop. Okay, now we'll move on to questions, and I did see some coming up. Owen, you asked the question about the skills that you have in communication and how you feel that a lot of the experience of your peers comes from debates and that kind of thing. And can you use the communication skills that you developed in your mock interview? You could use that experience. What I might suggest is thinking more to, where else do you communicate? Do you do so in classes? Have you done group work in your assignments? And so again, in this case, I might recommend a resume appointment or work search appointment, so a career advisor can sit down with you and chat about experiences. I'm so glad that you do the mock interview appointments. That can be so helpful, and that could be an example, but I bet you have even stronger examples than that I would love to be able to explore with you. Paulina, anything to add there?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Absolutely, I do agree that likely there are other examples that you can use. But I really love that you're thinking of this, and we can certainly help you kind of brainstorm and bring your best self forward in the resume with the communication skills there. So thank you, Owen. And we'll go with Beneath's question. So it says, suppose the unpaid experience is as a volunteer, but it is relevant experience. Do I need to specify it specifically as volunteer experience or not mention it as volunteer experience under experience column? Great question, Beneath. I mean, really, unless you're applying to a job that specifically says, we would love for you to have tons of volunteer experience, then you might want to mention that it is volunteer experience. You don't want to lie either, but if you don't need to mention that it's volunteer, you don't necessarily need to say, you know, this is great experience that I had, but it's volunteer. That's not the case at all. Feel free to just talk about your experience, talk about the great things that you've done, and leave it at that. The only thing I wouldn't do, I don't encourage you to put it under a work experience section, but if you call it relevant experience, or for example, if it is customer service experience, then you might want to have it under that section. Whatever it might be, just don't put it under a work experience section, but you can have it under experience, absolutely. And you don't need to mention that it's volunteer because it's neither here or there for the recruiter. Good question. And the question from Joy Chen is, where can I download the PowerPoint slides? Now, the webinar will be available to you briefly. Alicia, do you know?
Yeah, so you'll be able to receive the recording for this presentation. And so I believe that you'll be able to have access to the slides through that. And we can also, if you're very curious about receiving the actual PowerPoint slides, you can send us a message or we can get that out to you when we send you out the recording. But you'll have access to this recording because you registered for this presentation. And then another question from Aiden. If I wanted to have both my resume and my cover letter optimized, should I book 2 different appointments or can it be booked in 1 appointment? This is a great question. And it's one of the reasons why we have our hour-long work search appointment, because it just gives us a bit more time. Resume and cover letter appointments are 30 minutes each, and the work search appointment is 1 hour. So it's up to you if you want to have a resume appointment one day and a cover letter appointment the next, or do everything all in a 1 hour appointment type. Generally speaking, if you did do a half-hour resume and you wanted both a cover letter and a resume looked at, we would be able to give you cursory kind of beginning notes, but we wouldn't be able to take a deep dive on your resume or cover letter both in just half an hour. So keep in mind what your goals are for that appointment, and then you can book according to what it is that you want to achieve in that appointment type. I hope that helps, Aiden.
And do remember that you have an unlimited amount of appointments that you can access during your time at the University of Waterloo. So while you're a student, feel free, you might as well take advantage. And if you need to book a few resume appointments to feel like you're confident in your job searching, then by all means, feel free to do that as well. And you can unmute yourselves if you like to ask any questions, or you can throw them in the chat. We're here until 3 today. But if you're hopping off, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And please let us know what you think through that feedback survey.
I'm getting some of your private messages that you're sending along. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We want to remind you that the workshops aren't the only way to reach out to us, of course, but we would love to have you back tomorrow. We showed you how to use a job description to cater your resume. Tomorrow we talk about how do you find those good job descriptions, especially in a time where working remotely is the new way to go. So be sure to come on in tomorrow as well.
And thank you all for your thank yous. It's bringing a smile to my face, certainly. It is such a treat for Alicia and I to be able to do this for you. Since we're out of the office, we don't get to interact with students as much as we did before. And I think I can speak for both of us, Alicia, here, that we love it and we miss it. So
you got that. Yeah.
yeah, when we get the chance to interact with you and share our knowledge and get to hear your questions, it's a complete joy for us. So thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, we really appreciate it. And I do want to mention as well that it'll be Alicia and I, again, co-delivering tomorrow's session as well as Thursdays. So if you're hanging in there with us, we can see you again tomorrow, hopefully, if you can join us. Question from Owen, will the link of the slides be attached to the email for the survey? From what I understand, Owen, they are separate emails, but they should both be coming your way. Thanks for the question.